Hello, so welcome back to Tim Tom Talks. I'm Tim in Australia.
And I'm Tom in Los Angeles, California. And today we're going to talk about better world leaders.
Now, Better World Leaders is a kind of a big one. It's really the big one for us. It's the sort of central core of everything that we do with leaders is essentially coming off this premise that leaders are operative and key and crucial to making the world better. But it is such a deep, meaningful topic that we're not even going to attempt to get right into it in this or right through it in this one conversation today. We're just essentially going to introduce the theme, why we think the world needs to be made better and the role that leaders have to play. So Tom, should I just keep rolling or do you want to interject anything early on?
No, go ahead, keep rolling.
Okay, so, essentially when it comes to the way that the world should and could be made better, again, that's broad. There's a lot to get into there. But ultimately we are focused on workplaces, as a really crucial part of our world. So the ways in which we think the world could be made better, again, vast, broad, complex topic. And for today, we're just going to focus on workplaces and leaders' roles in work. But the world could be made better in almost every way. We could talk about big themes like climate and equality and justice, especially with what's going on in almost every country in the streets right now with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Especially
outside your windows. Yeah.
Yeah, and down my streets. Yes.
Yeah. So, we're going to focus on workplaces and the way in which leaders can improve.
Actually, Tim, I would say it's not just workplaces. Because if you think about it, when we just did Inspire, to be able to inspire as a leader, we have to know what our individual purpose is. And when we have our individual purpose in life, that ties into our work life. And if we don't have both, and have them working together, we're going to be off balance. You and I have talked about this a lot, and better world leaders to us means not only how are we better leaders in the workplace so we create a better world internally, but how do we make the world better ourselves? Because if we don't have a purpose that is bigger than work, same with a corporation. If the corporation does not have a purpose that is much bigger than the corporation, it's likely that it's going to be floundering. So we need to have purposes that lead our lives. And what we have found, in fact, what all the research has shown, no matter who you look at, whether you look at Oxford, whether you look at Harvard, whether you look at Kellogg Business School, any research that comes out that has a corporation that has a higher value than the corporation itself, and that is adding to the world and adding to its employees, those companies are the ones that are surviving. Not only are they surviving, they're actually recovering better from crises.
Yeah, absolutely. I was rereading last week some research that was put out by BCG right at the turn of the decade, just this past, sort of festive season. And that was something that we were reading from and we were sort of quoting around at the turn of the year. And the whole piece of that research was looking at what will you need to thrive in the 2020s. And right at the heart of that is purpose. And the research that they had done essentially could be summarized in this one finding, which was that organizations that are clearly founded around purpose and are led by purposeful leaders are more than twice as likely to have an above average share valuation. Right. So
Absolutely.
That's kind of in the hard fiscal data. If you have a clear sense of purpose and it's communicated and it's embedded in your culture, you can double your chance of being, kind of on the upper side of the NASDAQ or the FTSE or any of those indices.
Absolutely. And identifying that purpose even more now is, with advertising going away, with marketing completely changing and being so diverse, there's a lot of companies and organizations. My friend heads one, and there's a lot of agencies coming up that are aligning your mission or purpose-driven advertising and marketing with aligning it with corporation development, science, and product development. So it's really interesting how we're moving forward, and that purpose-driven really gives a heart to the organization, but it also gives your employees and yourself a heart and a purpose over and above the everyday work. And that's what's going to drive you through the challenges every day.
Yeah, so I mean, the sort of the quintessential summation of what is a better world leader, is someone who has themselves established, a higher calling or a purpose greater than themselves, and that is, to quote, one of the early podcast episodes, that is their reason to get out of bed every day. And then what they bring and how they realize that sort of out into the world organizationally is that either as the founder or owner, they're defining it, or the contribution that they make, as a leader, be it mid-level manager or as most senior executive, as they realize it in the organizational sense, is it's that everything that the organization does is orientated towards and sort of justified because that higher purpose is being served at the global corporate level, or the village craft level, and everything in between. And you're referencing values in everything that you do. Every decision is founded around, well, that's the direction that we're going. That's our 50-year vision, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, certainly you can look at all of the organizations that are really stepping up and thriving now, and that you get right down to the granular level, you'll find that is the purpose and the values alignment. That's what's keeping them moving.
Yeah, and I think two organizations that I'll give very different examples on is very timely today is Nike and Kaepernick, and how they sponsored him. And it's very controversial. Actually, today, it's prescient. When you look back at it, it's quite prescient of them to do that early on. And that creates a higher level purpose. Now, Starbucks is going to create a purpose and built itself on creating farms and sourcing from places and re-energizing communities that made coffee. So its mission has been about this higher purpose of not only serving great coffee, but also making sure that they're building farms and giving back to the small farmers and building communities around cocoa trees.
Two brands that stand out for me that have either just been doing this for so long that you almost have to keep reminding yourself that it's there, and one which is very new but really just been founded with this right through it. They're both clothing brands. One is Patagonia. So I mean, as well as creating really long-lasting clothing and having a lot of really sort of over the top, almost excessive customer service, sort of promises around like lifelong repairs. You could bring a backpack that you bought 40 years ago into a Patagonia store, and if a seam's busted or a buckle's gone, they'll replace it for free. But also they've always donated a portion of profits back sort of into the wild, towards sort of environmental orientated firms. And then they've for a long time produced very, very high quality docos, and movies almost that just sort of send that message out. And yes, there's a strong brand affiliation, but I think it really goes beyond that. The second one is Outer Known, which is Kelly Slater's clothing label. And they is, essentially at, the point of origin when looking for the cleanest factory opportunities that they could find. And they found one in Vietnam where it's primarily powered by solar, all of the chemicals and the sort of industrial offputs or outputs that you don't want coming out of denim basically get repurposed and recycled back into sort of almost a closed loop, and then the bit that's left over they use to make bricks for sort of low income housing. Just another clothing label, but on every one of these sort of markers that they're really sort of performing very, very strongly. And I think more and more organizations, even the size of Unilever, are seeing this kind of thing as being an underwriter to their valuations moving forward.
It's something we don't do. And as we're coming to an end on this podcast, I think what I would love people to do is leave comments about companies that they like, that they
Absolutely.
like what they're doing, that are purpose-driven, that have a mission that is bigger than themselves, that have a mission that's energizing their employees, that's making their workplace a better place. We'd love to hear about those.
Yeah, that's a great call, Tom. And I mean, we haven't done that so far, and I think we're far enough into this now that we can certainly expect that people are going to be, sort of looking forward to these. So yeah, thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.